Yeah, I'm going to start actually with the bus strike. I'm going to start with a couple of strikes taking place, because I think they illustrate how things have changed. So one story, we got lots of students to go in big numbers to postal picket lines. 30 years ago, they got hostile reception. They were loaded when they went to the postal picket lines. They were greeted like long-lost brothers and sisters. And you know what's changed? Most working class families, a majority of young people now going to higher education. Right, most working class families have got people who in college, and they know the reality of college. They know about unemployment. They know what's facing in terms of that. They also know what the reality you're going to face. People leaving the working life. They're not just expecting you to leave to start, if you can get a job, start by paying off your student loans, your student debts. They're now also turning around and saying, you start with your job, you're going to have to take out a second pension. That's what the Labour government, if it stays, is saying. And that's what Cameron will do as well. You're going to get a double whammy. And actually, I think people can see it, and they know about the cuts, they know about what's going on in education, they can see the solidarity. The buses, I don't know East London, I know West London. The three most militant garages, Willesden, Westbourne Park and Cricklewood. What's interesting about there is that there used to be an old corrupt union leadership, which was turfed out. And the new leadership are people like the guy who was actually one of our schools who's joined us, a Somalian activist, were people who got into activity around the Stop the War demonstrations, got politicised, and then decided to change the union leadership because they got fed up. They had to, eventually they did get the union banner in Westbourne Park, but they actually had to kick the door in of the union office to get it, and decided to change the union. And then I was talking as well at a school we had, but actually the bus worker was at a little party school we had, discussing the ideas of women. And I was talking to one of our leading civil servants, civil servant activists, and I just asked, what are the civil service reps, your people, reading? And he turned around and said, oh, it's the usual stuff, Naomi Klein, all this. And the anti-capitalist, anti-war stuff which went at the beginning of this decade is feeding into this. And it reinvigorates old people as well, because actually you look at Vistey on him, and it was the occupation in North London. It was an older layer of activists that got involved, and they like it. And it's not that this is separated off. I mean, and it's coming through. Now to go to some of the more direct points I've asked up. Alan Sugar, well, all I'll say about Alan Sugar is it sums up British capitalism, isn't it? I mean, that's the best he can produce. And he's a failure. Even when he bought a football club, it failed. I mean, it's crap. It just sums it up. Branson as well. I mean, it sums up British capitalism. But I'll tell you what, most of these people are what they are. And if you want to just look at it, just read. Every day there seems to be a case of gross sexism in the City of London. The current one is horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. If you did that in any of the workplaces in this room, if you made those remarks, you'd be out. But you wouldn't just be out by management. Lots of people would turn around and say this is not appropriate. The trade unions would say this isn't appropriate. In the City of London, it's absolutely normal. You come out with sexist filth all the time. And there's constant cases of it, isn't there? People this is their class, at the top of their class. Women being driven out by just the sexism of it. What nasty sods these people are. And if you think about it, it's not surprising in terms of that. David Cameron. I hate to say this, I'm quite sanguine about David Cameron. Because actually he's not Margaret Thatcher. Labour will try and scare us into voting Labour because of the memory of Margaret Thatcher. He's not Thatcher. You think what he's done actually, he's more like Tony Blair. What he's tried to do is swing the Tories to make them electable into that field. And he doesn't come across like that, and all the time, even that last speech, what was it, about society and the state? He doesn't say there's no such thing as society. He doesn't come out with that rhetoric anymore. And where was he in the postal dispute? And I say that. Right? He doesn't strike me about it. And he's got a problem. Because actually the level of attack they're going to have to do to pay for this public sector deficit is going to be across the board. And they will kind of come out with this macho stuff, weren't they, at the conference season? They were saying, we'll freeze public sector pay. We'll cut public sector pay. We'll do this on pensions. We'll do that. But it's going to have to be across the board because the scale of it is actually quite big. Thatcher didn't attack us across the board. She went for us one by one in the build-up till eventually she took on the miners. And even during the miners' strike, she was really careful just to have one fight at one time with one group to break them. There was actually one Tory government, which I remember, that did take us on all across the board. Deep, dark history, a man called Edward Heath. And what happened to him? We got him out. And he couldn't contain it. And it doesn't have to be like that. And Cameron, to me, actually is a problem. And it goes back, actually, to the problem they've got. Because the crisis doesn't just affect us, it affects them. I smell paralysis. Not just at the British government. Gordon Brown is dead, so I mean, there's a particular case of rigor mortis there. Right? But I smell paralysis. Because there's a crisis. And they don't know if this recession's over. They don't know if this is a blip and it's going to back down into another sharper one. They don't know, they kept saying Britain was coming out of it, and then the figures revealed it hadn't. So they're not sure. And then the other crisis they've got, and they can't deal with it, is Afghanistan. And to be honest, it reeks of Vietnam. They know they've lost, but there's no way out. And they keep extending the war, like they did in Vietnam. They kept extending it. They extended it into Pakistan. It's now actually moving up into Uzbekistan, into those areas. The fight's continuing. They've lost. But for, somebody ask it, Britain will just keep tagging along behind America, but for Obama or anyone in the American to turn around and say, we've lost, it's such a hit. I mean, Vietnam was such a hit for the Americans, right? That actually can't do it. And you sense paralysis. And actually, people sense it. I mean, it's one of the things, this paralysis is a critique of the system, and class struggle is coming on. And I think, we do need to talk about it, because the postal workers got very near. And I think if the postal workers had won, and the union leaders snatched a compromise from a victory, unnecessarily, it would have encouraged everyone to stand up about the bullying. There's that sort of mood around. People want to do something about bullying. They want to do something about pay. They want to do something about pensions. The confidence isn't there, but a victory, and a high-point public victory, would do it. Hamlets College was a brilliant victory, but it wasn't so big enough. The postal workers came nearer, and capitalism is great at creating it. Take an unlikely group of jobs, and an unlikely group of workers. When I was a kid, being an air hostess, as they were then called, was a job which people would have died for, especially at British Airways. It was glamorous, the idea you're going to swan around the world, free air travel for you and your families. I mean, this was a job. And most of those people would regard themselves as solidly middle class. The other week, 3,000 BA cabin crew at a mass meeting in Sandown Racecourse, bitterly angry over what's happening to them. Pay cuts, de-skilling effectively, health and safety issues, the casualisation of it. They've taken a group of workers, the most unlikely group of workers, right, and they're making them militant. Now, the union has got a history at BA of not delivering on the action, and they were very apologetic for sending out strikes and all the rest of it, but unfortunately they've said to people to wait for the official ballot, even though BA is implementing the reforms now. So we'll wait and see. But I tell you what, capitalism is really good at making those people suddenly become aware they are working class. And they've got a sense of union, and they've got a sense of them and us, and they've got a sense of unity. And just think about lecturers. Lecturers, Hamlets College, when I was a kid, being a lecturer was a job for life. Now it's a day-by-day job. Most of the people at Hamlets College don't have a permanent contract. And who runs Hamlets College? It's stuffed out, the board is stuffed out with businessmen from the city. It's corporate. All the time it's coming back in. I did a meeting like this in Walton Forest where a teacher from a local school has been into a trust stood up and said they're against the trust because they're rules of local democracy. He said it's been taken over effectively by the Institute of Education in central London. He says that sounds benign. But they've been taken over effectively, and there's no local democracy over them anymore. They're a corporate body with no say over it. And it just keeps running through. Even the bits of sort of democracy we had are being eroded, even the bits of say coming through. And all the time they're just a reality of attack. I mean, I'm sorry, I keep wandering off sentence, but I'm just amazed at how neoliberalism works. I take my son to a drop-in centre. That's why I keep talking about stuff like Sure Start. My drop-in centre is now a model project. There is someone from Job Centre Plus being seconded to the drop-in centre. Now, why would someone come to a place you take your children to play? That's why you're there. It's not, that's what it's for. She is there to get single parents, effectively parents, back to work. And so you're in a drop-in centre with, in this case with my son, and this woman ambles over me